Hello and welcome inside the Midlife Pilot Podcast, episode number 17, all about how we use ForeFlight. And this is a podcast kind of built and designed around people like us in your midlife, learning to fly or just enjoying general aviation in the middle of your life. And that's what we do here. My name is Chris Moran. I have a YouTube channel called, conveniently, The Midlife Pilot. And my co-host is Brian Siskind, who has a YouTube channel called Brian Siskind. He is also a private pilot, and he's based around the greater Nashville area. So we're glad you're here. Hi, Brian. I mean, I'm talking to them. We're glad they're here, and then you're here as well.
Yeah, usually you introduce me as you make it sound like I'm sitting right on Music Row somewhere, like I'm in a studio on Music Row, which, by the way, I don't know
That's how I like.
Music Row is basically Airbnbs now. It's not what it used to be. But anyway, yeah, how's it going? Good to see everybody, all the mics, all the aviators, all the everybody. And yeah, so it looks like you're having some bad weather there, so that's good. You're not flying. Don't fly in bad weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We have assembled a crowd as usual in our chat room. For those of you listening on the audio version of the podcast, we record this show every other Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube. So you can check it out at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the midlife pilot. It's actually just youtube.com/midlife pilot. I don't know what happens if you put it's probably not going to work, but so you can check that out and join us in the chat. We love to hear from people while we're recording these episodes. So I am excited about tonight's.
I just want to interrupt. I wanted to say before we move on, I really enjoyed your 150 video. You jumping in a 150, having never flown one. You flew it around and you landed, and you did not have any incidents or accidents. So that was fantastic. I hope you had fun.
Well, thank you
doing it.
I did, and a lot of folks do not know that is what they're going to see on Saturday, because as a patron, you know about
the whole thing.
So no, I like it. It's a teaser.
That's why you got to be a patron.
It's a teaser. Exactly. If you would like to know what he's talking about, you can also check out patreon.com/midlife pilot and subscribe to my Patreon, and you will already get to see what he's talking about. Yes, no, I have been flying a Cessna 150 that we've added to our flying club. In fact, Stinky Weasel 1 is in the chat room tonight. He is one of the owners of that airplane.
Oh, nice.
It is immeasurably fun. We'll talk a lot about this as like in future episodes, but it has taken over my current spot as my favorite plane that I fly, and I love it. It's for a lot of reasons, which we'll talk about in other episodes, but it's a lot of fun.
Have you been able to fly with one other human in it yet?
Yeah, no, and it'll have to be a very select other human when I do that, because it's tight quarters.
Yeah.
But it's a great solo machine though. Like, I've been experimenting with how I want to like lay things out and like cameras and like iPads and stuff, and I've received a gift from, I don't know if I'll say that publicly, but Brian got me this pivot case system for my iPad, which is super cool. And I got a suction cup mount to go with it for the airplanes that I fly. The only one that doesn't really work super well for space purposes is actually the 150. What I've found, and you'll see in a second 150 video later, I'm using the co-pilot's yoke mount. So like it faces me from the co-pilot, above the co-pilot, and it's perfect. Like in that plane, there's just not enough physical real estate on the left-hand like window area to like put it up,
Yeah.
I've used it in the other ones. It works great. Like the 172, it's absolutely perfect over there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that worked out. I mean, it all stemmed from, one, you were nice enough to put us all up in a beach house for the Midlife Pilot fly-in. So I thought, that would be a gift to kind of reciprocate for some of that, which it barely does. You probably spent that on gas, just taking us back and forth to the airport. But then also when I saw your Newport News video and you were trying to size up a lot of, I just noticed you had to have your head down a lot. And I thought, you know what? I've been enjoying we're not sponsored by a pivot case, but we should be. And it has changed the game for me. I love not having any weight or counterweight or anything on the yoke, and just being, controls really actually kind of feel free and not like I'm going to hit stuff, and having it up at eye level. So I'm more inside outside, and my scans can kind of be more panoramic in that way. And so, and then the case is super well made. So anyway, highly recommend. Actually, no, we'll find out if we get an endorsement or not. And if we do, then we get so much of a promo code, then I highly recommend that people go.
There you go. I did actually mention it in the first 150 video. I did use it. I don't know if you noticed it or if you watched the full length, but I had it up in the windscreen, and immediately when I rotated and took off, I had immediate regrets about its location. I was like,
yeah,
this is not going to work well for me, because I felt like I literally to my left could see nothing. I was like, I don't know there could be a human there. And so I messed with it some in flight and played with it a little bit, but I ultimately found that it worked great on the yoke on the other side.
I appreciated you deducing that you shouldn't stick it on the window that opens.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is going to be fun tonight. ForeFlight, talking about ForeFlight is actually one of my favorite topics. It's done well historically. Everybody I talk to seems interested. It's one of those things that, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of interest about it as a tool. I think part of it is because it's so there's so many layers. It's like a giant onion, and there's like and I feel like I'm pretty, like, I'm not like, I've not done any instrument stuff yet, so I'm not like super deep into all of the stuff. But like as a VFR user, I feel like I touch just about every element of it, like from flight planning on to other stuff. But what do we think? How do you want to like crack into this thing tonight? Like, what's the best approach here to kind of talk about stuff?
Well, I mean, I think you're setting it up nice. By the way, your probably most popular video is your ForeFlight video, right? So how does that make you feel when you go to all this effort to record all these flights and all these other adventures and all this, and then the video that just kills it is you sitting down and just talking about ForeFlight. So obviously it's something that people want to hear about. I did like your ForeFlight video because it was just the right amount of here's how you do basic things, and just here's how you do some cross-country planning, and it wasn't too deep, but it wasn't so shallow that it was kind of useless. So, and I'm sure that, I know we've got some Garmin people and other, things, so sorry, we're just not going to talk about that, but,
because I don't know anything about it.
I really don't, but there might be some principles or some things that overlap. So hopefully it's not totally alienating people, but that is your most successful video. And it is something I've always, wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper on, but maybe not in the ways that are about, there's a million, like, go to ForeFlight if you want to learn how to do all the things. We're not here to teach people things or whatever. And we're definitely not instructors either. But we did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. No, but but I think that we've got maybe some insights, and it's more about like with a product like that's so full featured, there's just different ways to do the same things. And there's maybe some slightly hidden, really valuable things that maybe you just weren't aware of. And there are sort of little nuggets you can kind of uncover. So maybe we'll consider this a success if anybody walks away feeling like they got something new out of it that they just didn't know without us being painstakingly instructive.
Yeah, that's fair. And we're going to do our best while we're recording this audio podcast to be mindful of the audio audience. Although for those of you watching this live as we record it or later on YouTube, the video, if you're listening to the podcast and you want to check it out again with video, it's on the YouTube channel. So you'll be able to kind of see some of the stuff. We're going to show an iPad screen here as we talk through some of this. So those of you who are listening, if you want to check out some of the video content later, you can do that. So, okay. When did you start using ForeFlight? Like in your pilot journey?
That's a good question. So, and I believe you started using it, 5 years before you even had your first lesson or something, but
pretty much.
But I started using it right. when I knew that I was going to be soloing fairly soon. I didn't use it for probably I soloed at 25 hours. So it was probably maybe at about 18 or 19 hours that I started looking at that, because I just thought, well, once I'm up here by myself, I'd like to have all the tools that I can possibly have.
Right.
So that was about then.
I started before my first lesson, and I used it from lesson 1 on, mainly because, well, several reasons. I had an instructor who was on board with that idea and thought it was good. Thought it was a good idea. Really, for me, the biggest factor that got me even started in it was ADS-B traffic. Like, I just really like that extra layer of like awareness of other airplanes and whatnot. So that was kind of the really all I did the first few was like I had the chart open with the traffic overlay on it, and like would watch our position on the map and see other planes. Like, cause those first few lessons, like it's all you can do to like keep the airplane in the sky, let alone like mess around with this. So it was just like on my yoke, like a map all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a chart and like traffic for me in the earliest of days.
Well, let me ask you this. When did you start using it for checklists?
Also pretty early. That's a good point, because that was easy for me. Like, I love that not having to get out other like pieces of paper and other stuff, just to have everything there. And I use it from scratch pads early too, for like writing down the weather. Like I probably had my first couple lessons where I actually wrote on paper. And then we stopped that nonsense like pretty much right away. And I've only recently added, like in the last year or maybe 6 months, an Apple Pencil to the mix. And I didn't think I was going to be a huge factor, but it really does make writing a lot easier. So I added that to the mix, and I use that to write all my stuff down. That really became a big deal.
Yeah, I never, there was a period of time, a little bit, where I used it for checklists. I've never used it for scratch pads. I've always just felt better writing things on paper for whatever reason. I did use it for checklists for a while. I just like how they're customizable. So maybe that's one thing that we can kind of break off right away for people, is that if you do consider wanting to use checklists in ForeFlight, they're highly, highly customizable. And so it'll start you off with a baseline checklist that works for that model, that covers all the things that really need to be covered. But even further than that, there were just a lot of little things. Like when I was training, I would do things like nearly forget to, or just about forget to, make the radio call at a non-towered airport to get on the runway. Like when you're saturated, So I had, I added just kind of, anytime I forgot something that I just felt like wasn't really a checklist thing, I just started adding it to checklists in the custom manner so that I wouldn't forget. Another one that was a good thing for me to put on there was to start the cameras, because there was a few times. Have you ever done this, Chris? Where you? Oh yeah. You get
so that's what I'm showing now. This is actually early. I made this very early on. I had a whole pre-flight section called technology. It was cameras recording, camera audio feed, power source, connect my audio from my iPad to my headset, and check our Stratix calibration. Like, this was all stuff that I added to 5.2 Lima's checklist very early on, because I was forgetting those things pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing worse than starting up the plane and you really actually wanted to film some stuff, and you just realize, I'm not turning off the plane to go start the cameras. And I know there's like a GoPro remote app or whatever, but it's so clumsy, and I've got so many cameras, it's useless.
For me, I didn't want to start the plane and be like, now I got to do this other stuff on billable time. Like, I wanted this stuff done like before the Hobbs meter was running. So that's why I put it in like the pre checklist, because I didn't want to mess with it once the menu was running, or the meter was running.
Go. So you can save some money with these checklists. But I just think it's really neat how, because the way that you add the checklist items also is kind of unique. You can add different types of checklist items. How do I explain it? It's sort of like if they're a special, you can have the checklist item, and then if you want to have some contextual text that surrounds whatever that item is, you can add that sort of extra kind of copy or text around it to kind of guide whether that checklist item is complete or not, or if there's minimums or maximums, or various things. So that's a really, really cool thing. I'm actually probably going to start getting back into that. I just, I think that for me, I don't know. I just kind of, wherever I left off after check ride, I just kept doing like whatever I was doing at that point. And so I kind of, I had a few incidents in training where I had some water in one of the vents came and spilled all over me and everything. And I just had a few things where I was like, man, this iPad could go at any second. I got to make sure. I mean, I'm sure you have a backup checklist with you, or like one that comes with the plane or whatever. So keep that in mind, right? Like ForeFlight should never be your only thing.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I'll show you something else. Are we just going to jump around here and talk about some of our favorite things? Is that kind of what we're
going to be highly organized.
Yeah, that's just because that's us. I'll show you a place I've been spending more time than usual lately in ForeFlight, and that's in the aircraft section because we've added another plane to the club now. So I had to add the 150. And every time I do this, I end up spending time kind of with my other airplanes that I fly that are in this list to kind of go through and clean some stuff up. But if you haven't spent much time in the airplanes section, there is a lot in here that you can do that'll really make ForeFlight even more powerful for you, especially on your cross country planning. So I always tell people if you haven't done it, it is very important that you fill out the information on your aircraft in here that you're using as much as you can find, like your glide performance, so that your glide advisor ring is accurate, that it'll show you in your map where you could glide to in the event of an engine failure. Your weights, like I use it for weight and balance. It's important to make sure you have the latest weight and balance data for your airplanes, and they're correct. Like check them against the paperwork, and I always, the first few I do them on paper and ForeFlight until I'm sure that I can trust what I've put in here, and then I go exclusively by that at that point. But also, here's the big one. I don't think a lot of people really dig super deep into the performance profiles. So this is a bad example. This is the new 150, but I'll show you like 5.2 Lima and 152. I have 10 performance profiles that I've built for 5.2 Lima, and they're all different altitudes and different power settings based on the cruise performance charts that you can find in your POH, right? So you specify, we won't go super deep in the weeds. Like you say, this isn't a training event, but basically inside each of these performance profiles, you specify your climb, true airspeed, how much fuel you burn per hour in the climb, and what your climb rate will be for that distance. So you got to get a little creative sometimes when you're building these for like the higher altitudes, right? So like, in your table, it'll show you like what your climb performance is, and is it really that the whole way through? Your airplane. So you kind of have to, and you tweak these over time, which is what I have done in 5.2 Lima. I've compared like actual performance versus what I had planned, and I've slowly adjusted these profiles until I can pretty much count on these now to be accurate. But then you put in your cruise airspeed and your cruise gallons per hour, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you fill out these things, and then when you're flight planning, you pick the appropriate profile for the altitude of your flight plan, and it really, you can get these things dialed in to where you can really, really get your fuel planning down to a science. Super helpful. So if you haven't spent much time in the aircraft section, I think that's one that like people like throw their plane in the first time and they put its colors and like, blah, blah, blah. And then just, that's the only thing you do. But there is
glide ratio 9-to-1, call it a day.
Exactly. But there is immense power in the like aircraft section of ForeFlight. So if you haven't spent any time in there, I'd encourage you to do that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I haven't done that, but it's also, I think, the difference between owning an airplane and periodically accessing one that somebody else owns and allows me to fly for some crazy reason. But I do have a little bit of that going. So now, like, which plan level of ForeFlight are you on?
It's a good question.
And that might be a first thing to talk about.
I have we should address that. I have the Pro Plus USA. That is not the big one. The big one is the Performance Plus. So I have the Pro Plus plan, and I've been happy with that. The only reason I did it, actually there were two, and I can't even remember the second one right now. The one it's silly because I haven't done any instrument stuff yet, but I wanted geo-referenced plates. Like I wanted to be able to drop the even the actual official FAA airport diagrams, but like approach plates like over the map and have them geo-reference my position. Like, and that's not available in the plan that I was on.
So are you talking about like when you're on the ground, just being able to see you taxiing?
Well, I mean, I can see me taxiing on. Okay, without the Pro Plus, you can see yourself on the ground taxiing with like this level of like this map that comes based in ForeFlight.
Oh, but not the plate.
But you can't see yourself taxiing around on the actual airport diagram. So like,
got it.
So I can pull up the actual FAA airport diagram like this and be on it, like on the, but it wasn't so much the airport diagrams. It was like approach plates. Like I wanted those to be able to be geo-referenced in flight. There was one other feature and I can't remember what it was. And it's been a long time since I switched to this plan, but there were really only two that I felt like I was missing that I just felt like I had to have.
I'm on Performance Plus, bro.
Oh, so you have the big one. Yeah. So you get, in addition to what I have, you get 3D view, which I've really just never, I don't know. D-ATIS, the new digital ATIS, takeoff and landing calculations, advanced flight planning, whatever that includes, and trip assistant.
Mm-hmm. So I will say that I can see how the 3D view thing is not, I can see how that's just like a whatever, but I will tell you, I have found it to be extremely valuable. And maybe it's more about the stage where I am. I have 176 hours now, but who's counting? And I don't know. Just I'm totally fine going to all kinds of airports and new airports and whatever. And I do it all the time, and I'm getting better and better and better and more comfortable at sort of getting into new airports. But depending on what it is, and depending on what the terrain is, or whatever, or just the situation. Like for instance, when I flew to the midlife pilot fly-in, I made that whole flight plan, and then I can sit there and watch the whole flight in perfect 3-dimensional, exactly how it's going to look to me. So I could see exactly where, the spot where I chose to go over the mountains, how does this really going to look when I'm actually there? Also the 3D view of the airports thing is really cool too, because it will blend. So I can choose any airport and then look at the 3D view of that airport and choose what altitude. So I can kind of get a sense of here's what it's going to look like when I get there at this altitude, which is hugely helpful when you've kind of seen it before.
Right.
And you kind of already have mental landmarks and things in your head about sort of where the airport's going to be, how it's actually going to look. And it'll superimpose real-time traffic over the 3D view of the airport. Those things to me cool. Have been, it's definitely, beyond what is necessary. I'm sure that my father didn't have any need for such things, right? And when in his day, cool, but I mean, these are, I feel like he would like a lot of this stuff. I think he would appreciate a lot of these tools. And so for me, going to unfamiliar airports, especially, or on any long trips where, the terrain's going to be different or whatever, it just is nice to be able to actually kind of pre-experience the whole flight. And then also it's kind of neat to be able to, you can follow your track logs in the same way, and you can pan and turn and look out the side and look down, and it's really like you're in the plane. So it's a little bit of whiz bang, but it's definitely a cool thing and somewhat functional.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to just real quick talk about a couple of things, like just on the main, like the map view, like my favorite things. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time because I've beat a couple of these to death, literally to death. I'm going to hide our faces for a minute on the stream so we can see the whole. I don't know how many people know the bottom bar down here on the map screen. Yeah, I'm sure most people know this. Is totally customizable, like the thing where it shows you some stuff here across the bottom strip of the map. If you just touch and hold on it anywhere, it'll bring up a menu, and you can pick in each spot what you want to be shown in each of these blocks across the bottom here. My absolute gold gem, like hidden gem, secret favorite thing is the descent to destination
Absolutely.
feature that I turned on like almost immediately. And then when I have my stuff in here, no matter where I'm going, it always tells me if I started descending right now, how many feet per minute I would have to descend at to get to where I want to be at my destination. That I think is like a super easy cheat. And a lot of our GPSs, you can calculate, vertical nav, like you can calculate descent profiles in like our Garmin 430 and 530 and stuff. And it's fine, but it's a lot more twisting of knobs than just like to glance down at your iPad and see it on your iPad. So like, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. But before you move on from that,
yeah,
I just want to say that is the descent to destination is, especially having it up in a view where you can see it at all times. And as it changes, it just sort of takes the ambiguity and especially again, when you're going to new airports and, it's not some thing where you some big destination, you're just trying to make a hop to get over to some place and you haven't really been there a lot or whatever. Right. It's so great to be able to just take all the ambiguity about when to start your descent. The only question I had about that feature though is, or maybe it would be a feature request, but I'm assuming that means to get to the ground, the runway, not pattern altitude. What would be really cool is if it was a descent to destination to pattern altitude.
So I think it does change that. If you, I think it does modify that. If you were like to go into your flight flight plan, and where you go into procedure and then add your traffic pattern, how you're entering the airport. I think when you add it to route, I think it does change your descent to destination profile. I'll double check it the next time. Okay. It does change the numbers, but that may also just be because it's changing the distance. So I'm going to fly until I get to the ground, right? So I need to double check.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's what it is, but
it might be.
And by the way, you just kind of blew right through that, but that's easily one of the coolest ForeFlight things too, that I don't think a lot of people actually use, but being able to put your procedure in, to be in the air and be like, okay, I'm going to go to this airport here. And just, you already know what the best wind is, what the best runway is, the best way to enter the pattern. It's fantastic.
Yes, agreed. It is super, super cool. Hey, here's something else people may not know, especially if you haven't updated to the latest version of ForeFlight. One of the features, as I've watched these forums, since I've started using ForeFlight, complain, hey, how did we switch sides? Hold on, everyone. There we go. I've watched these forums complain forever since I've looked at it. Like, when you make a flight plan and you put it in ForeFlight and you pick an altitude, it's like, that is the altitude for every leg of the thing. There was no convenient way to change your profile view or anything in your thing to show you like different altitudes at a thing. Okay. Finally, in this last release, I've got a flight plan here. This is actually a real world one that we flew for Father's Day with my wife and daughter on the evening of Father's Day. And we were going to go up from Fairmont, up over Morgantown, out up here around Nemacolin Resort, and then come back. So I was going to there's some terrain here. So I was going to come out here at 5,500 and then we were coming back at 45. So you can now go into the profile view on the map screen. And so right now, everything across the board is set at 55, but you can touch on the waypoint that you want to change it. And I want to start at this PA88 airport at 4,500. And when I say okay, you can see the profile view changes up here now, and I step down 1,000 feet. So you can change each leg of your route now, the altitude that is in there for that. That's been one that has been like, it seems like a no-brainer, but I guess, that you just behind the scenes, the thing it takes to actually make that happen was probably a heavier lift than it seems like, but that's a huge feature, and I'm going to use that a ton because there will be times, there are complicated flights and certain places you want to be at certain altitudes, and you can now put even VFR flying. I'm saying you can put that in and kind of build it in and see the profile view, which I love, to look all the way around, along your thing of flight and see, see what's going on out there.
Yeah. And
another thing you have, Brian, in your tier that I don't have. Here's one thing I would like. I think you have a clouds option in this profile view where you can see the ceiling layers. That's a nice one too. I don't have that in the profile view, but that's a very nice option.
Yeah. And so I think that the first level of ForeFlight, if I'm not mistaken, you don't have this profile view at all. Is that right? I think that in the whatever the bare bones version is, or the entry level,
I'm not sure.
I don't think you have that profile view, which is certainly one of the most handy things. So I've got, so by the way, I saw that, Wingman Flight Academy says, I reached out to ForeFlight to ask them to add the checklists to the web interface so it's easier to make a custom checklist.
That's a great idea.
Could not agree more. That's a
great
fantastic idea. And be advised, if you're already familiar, that the web version is woefully obtuse. It's not great compared to what you get with the actual iOS version, which I understand they can't be developing on parallel platforms and make any money. So
right. It is very good,
but
it serves the purpose that I need it to primarily, which is flight planning and like, and that kind of stuff. And, and it's all in sync because it's all cloud based. So you end up with you mess with the plan on your laptop and it's on your iPad and it's on your iPhone. Like it's, I get all that, but it's, you're right. The web version, other than for like the flight planning stuff, there's just the features just isn't all there.
No, but that's okay. I totally understand. But that checklist piece is something that shouldn't be too crazy for them to do. So I agree with that. And what was I going to say? Oh, so I have on the note of Wingman Flight Academy. Now, before we go, we can kind of maybe cycle back to tips and tricks types of things. But I love this idea of what is it actually. I learn a lot about something when I figure out where that tool falls short. Strangely enough, it helps you figure out what it is and also what it's not. But I have a small laundry list. I wouldn't call them grievances, but I have things that I wish that they would change or add. Would you like to hear one of them, Chris?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, because I'm going to say it. So, so here it is. I've written this down so I don't forget it. All right. Okay. I want because ForeFlight already has all of the, especially when it's like, I'm not asking you to do anything crazy new. It's just about how do I look at this information? I want to be able to build a flight plan based on, in the same way that you put in your aircraft profile, right? With your glide ratio and weight and all these limiting characteristics. I want to be able to go in there and say, I'm a VFR pilot right now. I'm only ever going to be a VFR pilot right now. So I want to be able to say, I don't want to land on any runways, say, that are less than 2,500 feet, and they must be asphalt. And that's kind of just always, whatever your minimums are, right? Like I will, 5,000 feet for clouds. That's my minimum. My crosswind is, 10 knots minimum. Or, you can build a minimums profile, which one would promote safety because it would force you to really think about what are all of your actual minimums. And then you can activate it in such a way to where it's like, I can go into like a planning view that sorts or filters by those minimums. So if I want to go flying one day, I don't have to sit here and peck around and figure out which place is the best place for me to go today. It just shows me the places that are already meeting those minimums, and that, the wind is already right down the runway, or there's no more than a 10 knot crosswind. And I'm not going to show you all the places that you can't go today. I'm going to show you only the places that you can go today.
I like the idea.
Oh, but gosh, here we go.
Can I play devil's advocate for a minute?
Oh God.
You know why I think it's going to, and here's why I think where it gets challenging.
Okay.
And that's just me being cynical and thinking of the way the world works. I don't think Boeing is going to want to take on the risk of saying, like, I just displayed to Brian Siskin today that, like, he is safe to fly to this place. And then something is not exactly right, and it's not. And you end up doing something stupid, and then it comes back and says, well, the app told me, I think there might be a certain threshold of like risk that they're just not going to be willing to assume. In much the same way, like if you've got a flight briefing, which we've talked about this, like you talk to flight briefer, they're very careful with how they choose their words that they say to you. Like it's super careful. Like, they won't tell you what to do or not to do. He'll say like, VFR flight not recommended. Now, I actually took a flight, one of the early ones was a condition where he said VFR flight not recommended, and I went anyway. but that's a different story. It was completely well thought out. It wasn't like flippantly. I was just like, screw you, I'm going anyway. It was very well planned, but like, so I mean, it would be cool. And you're right. Cause the technology is there, right? Cause they already know all these things. It's just a matter of filtering now by these various parameters. Mm-hmm. I wonder if the hesitation wouldn't be like, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where it's almost like we've, people just rely on that and say, oh, green light, like I'm out. And they just like go. And then now maybe you're thinking less about it than you were before. I mean,
so I get the liability concern, but I kind of feel like the totality of ForeFlight, you're going to sign by agreeing to the terms and conditions. You are agreeing to,
sure.
But I understand that this is sort of you asking the machine, is it okay for me to fly there? Which you're still not doing. It's just
that's right.
Spare me the clutter and show me what's actually legit. I mean, because I could go real far with all that. Like, show me where there's not going to be. Show me, only areas where there's only airports where there's not any, I don't know, where the TAFs have been. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like for sure.
You can get real crazy with it, but I feel like there's got to be something. And ultimately, if there's all of that data is open and available. So if anything, if ForeFlight's not going to do it, somebody else could do it,
right?
And just have a killer terms and conditions waiver. And I think that'd be a killer app.
That's true.
So that's all I'm saying. Oh, tell me, like, how can I know for sure that there's a crew car there or not? I don't know. Just you can't. I know you can't.
Now we're getting into I actually have a question. I have a question that I can answer from Wingman Flight Academy. Sometimes I have looked down at my sectional view on ForeFlight and lost my own ship and have had to scroll around to locate it. Do either of you know a way to always have your own ship in view? Yes, I do. Now, it's not always, but let me show you how you can do that. And for those of you listening to this audio podcast, let me tell you how you can do it. All right. So in this instance, you can't see my own chip is in the middle of these rings, like over Fairmont. Like here I am, see my little own chip right here. So I'm in the view now, but you're right. It's easy to scroll, to go look at something else and then like be flying and be like, now where am I? If you look on the screen, I can't point an arrow to it, but in the top right-hand corner of your ForeFlight app, there's a little round circle. It looks like a target looking thing, and it's going to light up blue when I click it. So I touched it with my finger. It's in the upper right-hand corner, right under where the battery charge percentage is. You see how it stays lit up blue if it's selected. And from that moment on, your own chip will stay centered in the screen from now on until you drag and move again somewhere else. See, the blue goes out when you do that to indicate that you're now no longer centered. But that is a take me to my own ship. And as long as you don't pinch or move the screen again, it'll stay centered forever there on the sectional again.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
And then you can do the same thing, a similar thing for traffic targets.
Oh yeah, like if you select a traffic target, like there won't be very many in my area right now because it is the weather is not super great. Like that guy, yes. So see, you're right, Brian. There's there's a target for traffic. Yeah, you can center on those. So yes, that's the short answer to that. Because that is annoying, certainly when you lose yourself in the. Do we have 2 minutes to talk? I mean, I don't know unless you have something else right now. I was gonna say I don't know if we've talked about like. I got to go. I was privileged enough to go to Oshkosh last year, and I actually went to 2 different ForeFlight sessions while I was there because I was super interested in it. And a lot of some of my YouTube friends, the folks I've worked with on various projects, were actually panelists on one of the talks. So I got to hang out there for a little bit, and they actually showed me something that I didn't know about flight planning. I used to go into the flights section and like start my plan from there and do stuff, like in the flights section. And then when I was ready to fly, send it to the map view. Yeah. That's not really ForeFlight's like recommended way to do that. They believe you should be starting in the map view all the time to build your plans. Because kind of the idea is like when you're in the map view and you pull down the flight plan drop down, like the file drawer from the top for flight plan, and you just start to build it out by typing. Like you put your home airport and your destination airport in, let's say, like that's how I would normally start. And so it just makes one big straight line. You put those two things in there and it just makes one gigantic straight line to your destination. And then if you want to do other stuff with it, you can kind of view around here and like click on your line and drag and drop, like, spots along your route and like how it's going to be and whatever. And while you're still in this screen, you can do most of the same functions that you can do from the flight screen, honestly, like pick which airplane, from your list that you're going to fly. Open the altitude advisor tab so that you can look at what like the best altitude for flight for this route would be. Pick a performance profile for your airplane, like all the things that you would be doing in the other one. With departure. Time of departure, exactly. So you could like pretty much plan here. Right. You kind of get it figured out how it's going to be, get all that. You can look at your profile view, make adjustments to your altitudes. And then when you're at that point, you can use the button to send it to flights. Okay. So then it puts it in the flights section of your thing where you can do your nav log, your briefing, like fill out some additional information, pack it. Like the idea is it's so much easier to manipulate the flight plan graphically on the map and get it, how you want the flight to be, and then do the paperwork details later in the flight section. So like that was kind of a change of approach for me. Like when I started planning my flights this way, it made it a lot easier. It saved me a bunch of time to do it that way.
Well, I got another feature request here based on this. I want to be able to have a multi-leg flight and do all that planning from the map view. And then I want to be able to send it to flights, and I want it to be able to break apart each leg into its own flight, so that then if you want to do a flight plan, you're not having to, because now you're doing copies and duplicates, and then stuff gets all wacky. I just want to be able to say, break it apart now into the legs that I've created.
That's interesting.
And then because ultimately, if you're flying, like when I flew to your place in the Outer Banks, I stopped in Mount Airy. And so I didn't have just one giant flight plan that I was following all the steps along the way at each airport and fuel stop and whatever. I was basically flying from here to there and then the next thing to the next thing. So I would like to be able to have those broken apart for me.
Right. That's
smart. Maybe I'm missing something. I mean, some of these things, there might be some way to do it, and I just don't know that that's a thing.
Yep. So then, you execute your flight, right? I hope everyone is recording their track logs in ForeFlight. I mean, it's kind of a default thing, but like it can be disabled. But what a huge, like in terms of like I'll get finished with the flight or whatever, get home, pull the iPad out, and then I'll come over to my logbook section and be like, oh, look, I've got a track log, waiting for me. It's so funny. My iPad is so whacked right now. It thinks I just flew 0.4 of an hour.
Log it
just now. Yeah. Loggable time. But it's saving track logs. If you haven't seen them, I mean, it's saving track logs from every flight that you take. Here's my most recent, flight in the 150 for those of you watching the YouTube version. You can see a couple steep turns. But it's so helpful. Like this data is so useful. In addition, not just for for logging your flight time, but you can then take this data, and if any of you use Cloud-Ahoy, a separate service that's online, you can export this data directly to Cloud-Ahoy and debrief your maneuvers and score yourself on the stuff that you've done. And it adds these track logs to your logbook too, which is a really great feature. Like if I go back and look at any entry in my logbook, now not only do I know the time that I put in, but I know exactly what I did. Like I can literally go back to any flight in my entire logbook because I've been using ForeFlight from the beginning. I can go back to the very early days of my training. Like here's November of 2018. and pull up my entire track log from that flight and have all the details saved in there. It's pretty incredible.
It's so helpful. And also I even without necessarily exporting to Cloud Ahoy or whatever, just being able to, you can really get some good information out of the, how well did I keep my altitude and, things like that. You can get a lot of how did I do type stuff pretty quick out of those track logs. Super, super helpful. Oh, and by the way, I'm just going to, I know we're kind of skipping around as a sort of helter skelter, but back down to this menu at the bottom that is so powerful. One of the ones that I have on mine always, and by the way, I'm surprised the ground speed is always spot on. It's never different than what I'm getting out of like the, whatever the 175 or whatever it is I'm using. But anyway, but with the one thing that I'm loving, especially when you're in this kind of weird in between places where there's not a lot of people reporting weather right around where you are, and if you're on flight following, they're going to give you the altimeter of the, a town that's 45 minutes away or whatever. Nearest Barrow. Have you ever used that?
No, I have not.
So it is just going to source and find the nearest reported barometric reading, and it's just right there at all times. So you never have to worry about if you have the latest, greatest, or and also just it's a quick way to reference, especially if you're holding altitude. Is that changing and to which direction? And I wonder why. So nearest Barrow is one of my favorites. And I wish there was more of these because I would love to have height AGL up there all the time too.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm just looking through some of these. How cool! Like height MEF, maximum elevation figure changes dynamically as you're flying along.
That's a key one. I love that the MEF.
I mean, there are so many things, and the other thing is not that I would, and if you would never be jumping to your iPad immediately in the event of something weird happening, but if you needed to be, like if you found yourself in a place where it's like I really do wish I knew where the nearest, what the what the MEF is here, I just would like to know that. You could always at a moment's notice pull that up and keep it up. You can change this dynamically on the fly. It takes 2 seconds to make a change down there. So
yeah, I think the MEF thing is great because your eyes, like when you're flying, I want to minimize how much time I'm referencing the sectional or anything that's me looking inside. And one of the things that I just found annoying was, when you're looking for that on the sectional, you're kind of like, okay, in this quadrant, okay, I think that's probably going to be, but where is that quadrant end? And, I don't know. You're kind of just having to triple check it in a way and look at it a little bit. Whereas when you have that just staring you in the face, I can just glance it and I know exactly, okay, as long as I'm above 2200, I'm good.
Stinky Weasel asks in chat, have you ever exported the data to Google Earth on the iPad? It's a cool 3D view of the flight. So I mentioned earlier the Cloud Ahoy service, which you can do a lot of cool things with, but you can also take these raw track logs that are recorded here, and you have this export button, and you can choose open KML in, and then it'll build this KML file and give you a bunch of options of where you can send it to. And some of I don't have it on this iPad, but you can send it to Google Earth, or you can download it, from your iPad and then upload it to Google Earth later from your computer or whatever. But you can load this data right into Google Earth and simulate it. I mean, it's kind of the 3D flight idea, right? You can kind of use it in Google Maps and go on Google Earth and fly the flights that way too after the fact, your saved track logs. So, that's cool. The data is all there, and I like how easy they make it to. They don't tie you down. They don't save this data and say you can only use this data in ForeFlight. Like it's like, here's this open source format, this KML format, feel free to take it out and use it in whatever other environments you can find to use it in. It's pretty cool.
I really I haven't used Cloud Ahoy since my check ride, but it was super helpful to be able to export that track log, put it into Cloud Ahoy, and see exactly what happened on my check ride, because you just don't you don't really fully trust what your memory was of that went well or that didn't go well. And I mean, obviously you pass, it goes well, but you really want to just look a little deeper to kind of know. I mean, I had a little bit of a longer landing than perhaps what was allowed, but
we got about 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to encourage, there's some folks in chat with us. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in chat here. We'll get to them. If there's specific things you have questions about, or if you want us to show specific things here in ForeFlight and talk about them, we can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to just bust through a couple more of my things that I like, and we'll just keep watching for chats to come in. We were talking about the logbook earlier. So I do use ForeFlight as my primary log book. I also still have a paper log, and I still write in them periodically. I am so far behind now. I mean, months.
Oh, dude. Me too. It's so bad. And it just keeps getting worse.
I know. So at some point, obviously is we're going to abandon it. At some point, like so many things, it's not going to be relevant. I mean, it's a cool keepsake idea. Frankly, it's not relevant right now. Every endorsement I've had, my high performance endorsement stuff, it's all been electronic. I don't have a paper one. I mean, they're all just strictly electronic. So anyway, I do really like the logbook. Not just for tracking flights, but I put pictures with a lot of my flights. I track who my passengers were. So I know with every flight what's going on in there. And then the qualifications tab I think is really cool as well. I'm trying to think what I can show that is not super like private. Yeah, I guess it's fine. So like you put your information in here, but you also put photos of your your certifications and stuff to keep them in here and all your endorsements too. Like I have my high performance. Is that one of these unknowns is? Surely not. I don't know what this is, but yes, like you put your endorsement. Yeah. You can put your endorsement. Oh, there's my high performance. So I lied. I do have a high performance on paper. But yeah, so you can keep track of all that stuff. It does a really good job of keeping your like currency summaries up to date. So you can say, crap, when did I do my night landings? Oh, I got 18 days to get my night landings in again before it's time. That's all very cool. Aircraft, you can break yourself out. Like I know right now I have 106 hours in 3852 Lehman. I've got 65.2 in the Cherokee, and I have 2.1 in the new 150. So you can immediately see your experience history and all the aircraft you've flown. It's pretty cool. That's all. And that's all happening dynamically, right? From where you add your flights to your log, it's just using that data to populate all those other things. And you
can do the actual form, like the 8710 and all that. So, and so it's a really easy way also to get reports to say, how much cross country time do I have? Or, night landings, or, you can get that information really quick. It's pretty awesome. I mean, for me, generally it's definitely something that I don't put too much stock in terms of just ForeFlight. I love it, but I've been challenging myself more and more to sort of, it's planning is everything. But then when I'm flying, it's real easy, to get kind of nose down in some of that stuff. So I always just want to remind anybody, just, it's easy to start just getting fixated on that. And it's an easy way to get down in your instruments and not looking outside. But,
that's right.
But I love it. It's great.
I do think you had a point earlier that I think is worth just emphasizing. And that is this idea, you read a lot of not everyone in the aviation world has adopted this idea of these electronic flight bag, like these iPads in the cockpit. Like they're still just like some people were. I mean, I don't know. People don't like to change. That's a known, and so frankly, it's generational in a lot of cases. Now, I know a lot of generational people beyond in the generation past me who also love their iPads too. So it's not like everyone in that generation, but I'm saying there's still a lot of pushback that's like, I don't know. they just these kids and their toys, and like they just have to have their computers everywhere and their stuff. I'm saying to you, and this is what I've said from the beginning of my training, and my DPE for my check ride agreed. Anything, and you said earlier, Brian, anything that keeps you want to spend as little time as possible looking for the information that you need to have, because then you can keep your eyes outside and keep flying the plane. So like I'm saying, any tool that gives you like that much like situational awareness information on display all the time. I don't know how anyone can argue it. I just don't think there is any valid case to be made against the use of these tools in general aviation planes from the beginning of training. I mean, like from the time you can get in the plane and like understand how to like control the aircraft, I'm saying first 5 hours. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can make a case like get somebody in there with 5 hours to think about nothing but doing this and let the instructor think about everything else. But I'm saying the sooner we integrate this kind of stuff as part of the workflow of people in their training, the better acclimated they're going to be to manage it. Like you're saying, is just one of the tools, to use it properly when they're trained with it. I just don't think there's any in 2022 excuse for it not to be in every airplane that's flying. That's just my take.
I agree. Now, what I just want to say about, in terms of you're talking about these curmudgeons, that are just not with it. Who knows? Maybe I'll turn into one of those people one day. I kind of aspire to that. And the reason why I mentioned that is because, so Chris, in 8 days, so by the time we do this again, I will be 50 years old.
Wow.
So that's the beginning of the end, really. I mean, that's like 50 years old. You look around, you take a snapshot of your life, your family, your friends, whatever. This is as good as it's ever going to be. And then just start packing up, right? That's really, so that's, I'm not saying I'm putting all my gear on Craigslist yet, but I'm just saying.
No, man, the best days are ahead.
No, it really is. And I'm excited about all the things. I mean, just there's this whole flying game is so momentum based, and it's interesting to see how this far now past check ride, how now it's really getting good. You know what I mean? Like the anxiety levels just coming down all the time. It's a good thing. Not the beginning of the end. It's the end of the beginning. Okay.
Nice.
I like that. And then the guy is 999, which is just that's the continuum. So great. Yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah,
50's the new 30, Brian.
So this has nothing to do with anything, but I just wanted to tell you about it because we didn't get a chance to small talk before we got on today. But I had a funny experience flying day before. We were flying to a place about an hour east of here, me and my wife. And, we're on flight following, and we're kind of going just over the north border of the Nashville Class C on our way east. And so we're on with Nashville approach. And it's, I appreciate, Katie getting a kick out of this because she hasn't really seen, it's like, yes, look down there. That's a Southwest jet going underneath us, or whatever. It's just cool. But so we were on, and obviously you're on with it's a couple of Cessnas and a bunch of Southwest jets and United jets. And for whatever reason, the controller, I told him I wanted, he knew that I was on my way to this airport, Smithville. And I guess I said something about the destination, or he asked something about where we were going after we'd already told him. Anyway, he said, he goes, oh, so you just, are you going out there for the cheap gas? I heard the gas is just really, really, really cheap out there, and, not that there's really anything cheap these days. And he's kind of going on this whole thing. I almost felt like it was like a trap because I was just like, I was like, nope, we're just going there, landing, leaving, just trying to get off of I was imagining all these Southwest jet pilots just being like, "Oh my God, what is this folksy conversation going on right now?" But the thing is it kept going on, and I was not doing. Katie even later observed, she was like, "You weren't doing anything to spur that conversation," and he would not stop. He was telling you to do this and do that, and all this.
Those
so anyway,
are the best.
It really it's especially when you're learning how to do things like flight following or deal with ATC. I wish I could have had an experience like that early on, because it just immediately, once they're humanized and the veil is lifted in that way, it just takes the tension down that you would have about your own communications so much. They're just people, and they've got jokes and they've got conversations they want to have. But I just thought that was a funny thing, because I was just giving cool. One word answer, just like Wilco, haha, like I'm not trying to talk right now.
Now I want to go find the audio.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Controller must
awesome.
have been a private pilot. Maybe so, because he knew the way he kind of said it, though, was sort of like, I heard everybody's going over there for the cheap gas. I don't know. So
yeah,
it was funny.
Well, that's good stuff, man.
Things. I wasn't getting yelled at.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I hope to fly some. It's much like you. It's been hot and crazy, and I got to go out a couple times in the 150. Went out on Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
I saw the picture that your daughter painted for you. That was awesome.
Yes, it's wonderful. I shared it on Instagram if anybody wants to check it out. She made a watercolor of our Cherokee, and it's really pretty cool. And so that's great. We went out on a Father's Day flight. This is the last story. I need to be careful that I violate any. Okay, so well, it's funny how you start making decisions like we're talking about, right? So like all three of us in the 172, and it's hot. I did the performance calculation, so I kind of knew how I was going to be getting out of Fairmont. We're like on the runway, full power, and I had laid my Apple Pencil up on the dash, which I don't ever put stuff up there, but it kind of, as we're rolling down the runway, it kind of went forward. So I am on on a takeoff roll, rotate, pull back. I'm with my other hand, my right hand, the throttle hand, I'm up on the dash, fishing for this Apple Pencil, while taking off. And Cecilia's like, "Hey," and I said, "Yeah, you're right. Here, hold this." And handed her the pencil and go back. But I looked at that later, and I thought, what is that? I know better than that, to just be messing with something, randomly messing with something else, like a pencil that's loose. What was that?
Yeah, well,
got to pay attention all the time.
You've got the right co-pilot.
Yeah. She's like, "Hey," I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Here, hold this."
It's she didn't even have to explain. She just gave you the, "Hey."
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing? Yeah, you're right. Here, hold this.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Anyway. Yeah,
well, do you have any future plans or things to announce or anything?
Video coming soon. I'm trying to think, when will this podcast be published? Tomorrow. So the video will be out Saturday, which is my first flight in a Cessna 150. I went by myself, no instructor. It's the first time I ever jumped in a new airplane a new model of airplane by myself, and had a good time. And I think you'll enjoy that one. And then the week after that is part 2 of the Outer Banks fly-in trip.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff backed up, but I was happy to go out on Father's Day, a year anniversary from my first solo, and just do some pattern work, and just did a nice sunset flight by myself, and just did some landings, and I posted a video of that, but it's nothing special. It's just some landings, but
I watched it. It was very good.
It was 2 minutes of just.
And I don't know if he's in here. I didn't look in the chat tonight. Did you notice if One Dull Geek was in here? I just want to give him a shout out real quick. I don't know if you watched his latest video, Brian. There's another guy that was at our flying with us. You can check him out at youtube.com/1dullgeek. He started his instrument training. and he published his first video in his series of going to instrument, and it was very well done, I thought.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Good, really good lessons, like voiceover, like explain, like keeping us like what's going on. Like it was, I thought it was very well done.
It was done to a level too where
finish.
And it was done on a level too where, like, even if you had no idea what any of this was, he does a good job of explaining. It's very, without being painful, right? He's just somebody that's not even a pilot or aspiring to be a pilot would still find it interesting. So yeah, It was really good. By the way, also, I had a little bit of a back and forth with this very small YouTuber, aviation YouTuber by the name of SoCal Flying Monkey, and I'm working on trying to getting him to join us, and we'll see if he can do it. So that'd be cool to have. That'd be cool to have him on. He's just another production geek like the rest of us. It's funny how many production geeks there are.
The fly planes, there are a lot. He's one. We've all kind of done a similar work, like Christopher. I can't remember his last name. He's the Baron pilot.
Right.
He is an A1. It's an audio engineer, an audio mixer for like NBC. He does golf like like the big golf events in TV trucks. And I've done so much TV audio. Like it's funny. Not at his level. Mine's like regional, like here kind of stuff, not like national stuff. But he's there are a lot of production people I'm finding that are also like into airplanes. It's kind of cool.
So I think it's similar uses of the brain and multitasking and performing in the moment kind of considerations. But
I would love to talk to Eric. I just think that would be. I love what he's doing on his channel. I just think they're he's a really good storyteller, and I think that his family adventures are just awesome. And he took that plane, that Cherokee 6, and turned it into like a freaking awesome beast, and they're doing some really cool stuff. That would be great if he wanted to come on and talk, because he's another one, and he's talked about a lot of stuff on his channel through his kind of like his flying. He's got a lot of lessons to share.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if anybody has any suggestions or things that you'd like us to do or not do, feel free to tell us one way or the other. Drop it in the comments here, or I'll give you Chris's personal cell number. Hold on one second. So air out your grievances with Chris. Area code. But I would like to get. It'd be cool to get some feedback on that, because we're just kind of just winging it and just having fun with whatever we feel like we like to talk about. And so maybe people have specific ideas. Oh, one other quick shout out I want to do real quick, and if anybody else has any, they can throw them in the chat. But a friend of mine, he's in a few videos that I've posted, flight kind of videos. A friend of mine, Steve Cross, has started training. He's maybe, I'm guessing, 10 lessons in or 15 lessons in or something. And he's another, Nashville photographer, drone guy, musician, media type person. Anyway, another one of us production people. And he just started posting a few videos of his training, and it's been it's probably more interesting for me than a lot of people, just because it's the same plane I trained in and the same environment, and it's really interesting to see how somebody else does. He's doing really, really well, but his stuff is good. I mean, and he's doing the thing like we did, where it's like, here's my training, warts and all. He's not trying to dress it up or make it anything it's not. So just look for his channel, Steve Cross. I was joking with him. I said that he needs to have a cool handle, Cross Wins, or
oh my God, please.
Cross Control or something.
That's legendary.
But he's a good dude. And then another friend of mine, Lucy Silvis, who's a singer songwriter here. She just found out that, and she's been training really hard to get to her solo, and it hasn't quite happened yet. And then she just is having some struggles now with her because she's not from America, so now she's having to deal with all that stuff, and it's kind of interrupted her training. So, but I've got some videos of her. But go check out her music. Anything, follow her on social media, say hi, encourage her. And then I also have another friend, Autumn Roth, who I filmed her discovery flight. She's right on the brink of soloing, and she's just at that point where it's like, I know that it seems like you're doubting if you can ever do this, but that just means that you're right about to make it happen, you know? So, I've got a lot of friends that are training right now that I'm trying to, I don't know, support in whatever ways I can. But yeah, check out Steve Cross.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
ATC communication webinar. What's that about?
There you go. And that's a suggestion for a topic. We should talk about ATC communication. I have a lead. Well, I don't want to keep name dropping because we don't know if any of these are going to pan out, but there is another very famous audio podcast that is done by two air traffic controllers.
Yeah.
One of them flies helicopters actually for the military, and the other is also a pilot. But someone had given me a lead on them. Actually, I know who it was. The Sage was trying to hook us up. I would like to run that down. I think that would be a great guest for like our audience to talk to a couple controllers. I think that would be super cool. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah, thanks, Jay Little. That's a good one. Okay, that makes sense now.
That's a great
When I saw a webinar, I didn't know if you were suggesting that people go, but that makes total sense. Yeah, we can talk about talking.
For sure.
People get stressed out about it. I get it. It's a lot.
Well, that was fun.
All right.
Good topic. Good choice. That's always a good one to kind of dig into ForeFlight a little bit. There's always something new to learn, or whatever EFB you're using. I saw some folks mentioned Garmin Pilot earlier. We're happy to talk about that, but I know nothing about it. But you know, similar idea, right? I mean, all the information in one place and displayed differently, and you know, different graphics and menus are different. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, good times. I don't have any big adventures coming up, but I am going to do a sunrise flight on my 50th birthday. So I'm going to get out when it's dark at 4 a.m, and then I want to see the sun come up on my 50th birthday from the sky. And my sister is coming to town I haven't seen in a while, and you know, she and I both flew around with my dad as kids, so it'd be the first time that she's ever even been around me as a pilot. And so I'm going to take my sister up for sunrise, and I'm super excited about that.
Roll those cameras.
Yeah, actually, I thought about it, and you know what? I don't think I am. I think that's going to be one of those that's just like, I just want to be here, but maybe I will. We'll see. I appreciate the motivation.
I'd watch that, but nobody cares. Nobody cares, so don't worry about it.
Nobody cares. I know this is going to stick with me forever now. It's going to be my epitaph, which is great, actually, for an epitaph. Well,
thanks for being here, everybody. That was a lot of fun. We'll do it again in 2 weeks. Figure out what our topic's going to be. Maybe we'll get a guest lined up by then. We'll see, but we'll keep everyone posted. Thanks for listening and subscribing and commenting, reviewing, all the things.
All right. Appreciate it, man.
All right. We'll see you next time.